It's kind of unusual because all the flights before ours had gone into an orbit very close to the moon's equator, because we knew what the gravitational constants were in that narrow band. Our landing site was 28 degrees north, which was way out, way beyond what anybody knew anything about. So we had to be very, very careful how we flew and watch out for some mountains on the surface. We actually came as close to the lunar surface, or the top of the mountain. We came as close as about 8,000 feet to the top of the mountain. Where normally we'd be in a 60-mile orbit, we dropped way down so that we could get Dave and Jim off in the lunar module down to the surface. And I guess we'll show you a picture of the surface here and there. They left the next morning, went down the surface. They had about, let's see, we were about 50,000 feet above their landing site. So instead of coming down from 60 miles, they only had to go 50,000 feet, which is like 10 miles, which saved them an awful lot of fuel going down. And that let them maneuver a lot more when they got down to the surface than they would have otherwise. Here we are on the lunar surface. This, back in the States, was a rather famous picture for a long time. It was used by the U.S. Air Force recruiting poster. It shows Jim Irwin saluting the flag, the lunar module in the background, and the lunar rover on the right side, that little car that they drove. It was an electric, powered car, four-wheel drive, four-wheel everything. It had 4 switches for everything: brakes, power, steering. You could drive this car, you could run this little car with just one wheel. You could turn 3 wheels off and just run it on one and steer and everything with that one wheel. Pretty clever little car. But the problem is it had batteries that were only good for 44 kilometers. So it wouldn't work very well down here, I guess. But it worked just great up there. In fact, they only drove it for 17 kilometers. So it's still sitting up there waiting for somebody to come and drive it. But just a word about the lunar module. We talk about the spacecraft. The lunar module is what we call a 2-stage vehicle. The bottom stage, the part that's gold down at the bottom of this thing, is the descent stage, and it has the fuel and the rocket engine and all the stuff needed to land on the moon. Okay, to come down and land. The top, the gray part, is what we call the ascent stage. That's the part that comes back up off the lunar surface, and that's the top stage of this thing. You see that mountain in the background? They had to come right over that. When you look up at the moon at night, we see what we call the face of the man in the moon. You know, I think we're all familiar with seeing that. That is made by dark circles on the face of the moon that we can kind of organize as a face. Those dark circles were all made by meteors, meteor impacts, as this crater was, although this is a very small one. Meteors impacted the surface of the moon and did a couple of things. One, we'll use this as an example. If I take a stone, if I take a pebble and I drop it in water, what happens? Well, the first thing that happens, you get a little dimple that comes up where the stone goes in. You get that little warp that comes up. That goes down, then you get waves that come out from the center of impact, and they'll keep going out, right? Same thing happened on the moon, except it was lava instead of water. Meteors impacted the moon with such energy that they basically, under the impact. And what you see in those big dark circles is nothing more than the outer wave of those ripples that go out that froze in place. And those lakes or oceans that we see, the big dark circles, are called oceans. They're about 500 miles across, so you can kind of imagine the intensity or the energy that was exchanged between the meteor and the surface of the moon when it hit. The other thing that happened, and we don't talk about very much, but in my mind, the other thing that happened is all those meteors hit on one side of the moon. Because the moon was probably not rotating. It was just staying in one attitude all the time. All the meteors came in and hit one side. Now what happened is that a lot of mass, a lot of weight from those meteors stuck to that side of the moon. That made the center of gravity of the moon come away from the center of the moon in that direction. The reason I tell you that is if you've ever wondered why the moon always has one face that looks towards the Earth, that's why. It has an offset, what we call an offset center of gravity, and that was caused by all those meteors impacting one side of the moon. After 3 days, Dave and Jim came back up into lunar orbit. And here's the essence stage. They're about 50 feet away. We stopped and took a bunch of pictures, had a few conversations, and then Dave and Jim docked, and we brought all the stuff from the lunar module into the command module, all the rocks, and all the paperwork, and all the bags, and this, and that, and the other thing, into the command module. Kind of a messy time. When we opened the hatch, when we got to the atmosphere, close to the atmosphere, we separated the command module. That's the thing on the right. And that's the only thing that's left over from the flight. We launched with 7 million pounds, came back with 3,500 pounds. That's it. But we had 180 pounds of rocks, we had lots and lots of film, lots and lots of data. It was a very, very good flight. Probably the most scientific flight in the program. We came down through the atmosphere very quickly and had a drag chute that came out and slowed us down. Yeah, drag chute slowed us down a little bit. Then the main chutes came out. Next. Here you see the main chutes out, and we splashed in the water. As soon as we splashed in the water, the Navy SEALs jumped out of their helicopter. They came around, put a rubber collar, inflated collar around us to make sure we didn't tip over in the water. And they got us out in a little rubber life raft. Here you see the SEAL. These guys are funny. We love the SEALs. They're wonderful people. We try to cause as much trouble as we can for the Navy, anybody that's in the Navy. But we love these guys because they were absolutely fantastic. They jumped in the water. It wouldn't make any difference if there were sharks or anything around. They were going to jump in the water anyway. They weren't afraid of it. And they got us out. But the funny thing they did is they got the collar on the spacecraft, and the lead SEAL, the head SEAL, came up to one of our windows and he's knocking on the window. And I'm sitting inside there and I say, "Why are you knocking on the window?" I could never figure that out. Did he expect nobody to be there? Was he trying to wake us up or something? Tell me, get over and open the hatch so we can get out. So he did. And we got out in the rubber life raft. Next, here we are in a little rubber life raft. And we put on our Mae West and we waited for what we thought was the most dangerous part of the flight. And that's when the Navy helicopter picked us up. Next. Here we go. Oh, I guess we don't remember. The Navy helicopter picked us up and took us over to the carrier that was our recovery ship. And from there we steamed into Pearl Harbor and then flew back to Houston. And here we are back in Houston at the end of Apollo 15. It was a great flight. We were a very scientific crew. We spent much more time learning the science than any other crew did. We were very, very dedicated to the science. We probably brought back more scientific data than any other flight. In the flight plan, there are a certain number of things you can do during the flight. I mean, they've got it all figured out. Like you can do 50 experiments and maybe 10 sightings or something like that. Well, we took those numbers and we multiplied it by 1.25. We had 25% more. Because what we figured was it'd be easy to take something out of a flight plan, but very difficult to add something in. So we went to 125 and we ended up doing them all. I don't think any other flight did that. We were very dedicated to getting the science done. And we're very competitive in the flight. So we got all that stuff done. So that's the end of Apollo 15. Now I'm going to stop this. We got to get into questions soon. I'm going to shut this off by telling you that we got paid for our flight in a way that you will probably not, you may not even understand it. But I was in the Air Force and I was making Air Force pay. And that was my basic pay. What we got paid for the flight was called travel pay. Now, I really wish they'd had frequent flyer points back then. Because I would have gone $1.5 million frequent flyer points if they'd done that, but they didn't. So we got travel pay. Now, I know you kids won't understand all of this, but those of us who make out lots of travel vouchers for the government to pay, there's certain things you have to fill out. The first one is transportation. What kind of transportation and how much was that? Well, it's government transportation because we're in a spacecraft. Next is lodging. Money that you spend to stay overnight in a hotel. Well, we had spacecraft to live in. Next is food. Anything that you buy on your trip, food. You get paid for it. Well, food was supplied. The only thing left was what we call incidental expenses. I got paid $3 a day for incidental expenses to be gone 13 days. And you know what that money's for? That's to buy things on your trip. So I got paid $39. Anyway, it's been fun. It's been great. I enjoyed talking to you, and I guess we'll